So, as you may well know, we've been keeping a very close eye on the situation, well, bubbling and brewing away in Northern Ireland for quite some time now. Those of us who have been following the situation since 2016 know full well that the Leave campaign always said that Northern Ireland was not going to be a problem. You don't have to worry about it. Why? Because you know what's coming next. My favorite Daniel Hannan quote, aka the brain of Brexit, the man who, if you had a question about Brexit, had an answer to it. His answer was simply this when asked, when said, a Remainer said that a vote for leave was a vote to leave the single market. His response at that time was this, that no, we're not talking about leaving the single market. Only a fool would think about leaving the single market. So hence to the Leave bizarre brain that that was pushing this at the time, Northern Ireland really was not going to be a problem. The problem became the hard Brexit liners, who then decided that the Brexit they had gotten was not good enough, that they had to keep on pushing. And we've talked before about when you have revolutions, about there's always this hardcore revolutionary base that wants to keep on pushing the envelope further and further and further. And that was the ERG. And they are responsible themselves for this current situation that Northern Ireland finds itself in. Because remember, Northern Ireland, as with Scotland, voted overwhelmingly to stay in the European Union. And I always said that should have been taken into account when we have a look at, it was, what is it? 52-48, I believe it was, the sort of the final score. And you had two sections of the United Kingdom that overwhelmingly did not want to do it. And in a very close referendum where it was only 2% ahead, there was never, ever really the drive to go ahead and fulfill this type of Brexit that we ended up getting, because this type of Brexit that we were eventually sort of sold and produced by Boris Johnson would have never worked at a referendum. No one in their right mind would have ever have voted for it. So before we go talking to more about the situation currently in Northern Ireland, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there is my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button down below. And of course, there is the Pony Club as well that you can join as well, where you get bells and whistles and whatnot as well. So, what's going on? Well, essentially, a quick catch-up, a TDLR to try and catch you up so we're on the same page. Essentially, in Northern Ireland, it has its own form of government called power sharing. And the two main factions really at play in Northern Ireland are essentially the DUP and Sinn Féin. And Sinn Féin is the Republicans, and the DUP is very, very much in the Unionists. So just so you know, terminology when we get around to it. So Stormont is effectively a power sharing government. So even if like the DUP or the Sinn Féin win, then effectively what happens is that the deputy position is taken up by Sinn Féin, regardless of whatever political points taking place, but they also have vetoes and things like that they can essentially use. And this is part of the problem, that the DUP, right from the word go, encouraged and egged on by the ERG, basically, first of all, to stop Theresa May's solution to all this. The ERG used that and eventually got rid of Theresa May, then brought in Boris Johnson, who then brought in the Northern Ireland Protocol, leaving out, obviously, the backstop provision, which they were so annoyed at. And then the idea was that we would, or at least in the Brexiteer mind, was that we would do the Northern Ireland Protocol just to get Brexit over the line and done, so that we don't have to have a conversation about Brexit anymore. But they forgot about the fact that the Northern Ireland Protocol, the very thing that they sort of then went for, And by the way, threw the DUP under the bus because the DUP were assured by the ERG at one point that they would never allow the a part of the United Kingdom to be out of its regulatory orbit. But after all, Boris came along, promised his oven-ready deal, and well, here we are. And since then, we've had an election where Sinn Féin came in first. Probably, I think it was the first time they've ever come in first, and essentially the DUP used their veto to refuse to elect speakers, which basically has meant that the Stormont Parliament in Northern Ireland has basically not been operating since May, and now we've come to a point where the DUP have probably again today, like I say, there are negotiations are going on, but the DUP aren't going to back down. They are once again refusing to go, so we're going to go into an election. And I think very much we're going to get the same result. I do not think the DUP are going to come in first. I think they are in some way hoping that they will, but I very much doubt it. And even if they did come in first, they're still going to use their veto because they want rid of the Northern Ireland Protocol. They do not want a sea border between Northern Ireland and the UK. That is their stated position. Because if you get rid of that, then where do you have your border? You've got to have a border somewhere. And this is always the crux of the conversation. If you do not want a land border in the, in between the UK and Ireland and Northern Ireland, where do you have it? You can't have it between sort of the North and Republic of Ireland because that's against the Good Friday Agreement. That's breaking an international treaty. But as we've said before, the DUP don't like the Good Friday Agreement and would quite very well happily just rip it up if they could. And part of all this chaos is to try and force the UK government into trying to ditch the Northern Ireland Protocol. That is part of the reason. And they are going to cause, as we've said time and time again, they are perfectly happy to cause crisis after crisis until they get their way. And the thing is, they were very much egged on and, boosted up by the ERG, which is highly hilarious because today, Steve Barker, again, a prime member of the ERG, came out and said that the DUP should sit down and choke down their position. So there you have a Brexiteer saying that, you have to sort of maybe accept what you're getting. Just the DUP didn't do that. The DUP didn't do that at all. They effectively took down two prime ministers and then continued to push like the zealots that they are, and in the way that the DUP are replicating their exact same tactics. And Donaldson, let me make this clear, the leader of the DUP has made this clear, that he has said that the DUP will not end its boycott and that Downing Street has to deal with the Northern Ireland Protocol once and for all. So even if we do go to another election, and I think regardless whether the DUP comes first or not, they are still going to cause crisis after crisis after crisis until they get their way. And this is very, very much the fault of the Brexiteers, who said that Northern Ireland's not going to be a problem, who then pushed the hardcore zealots then pushed for this hard-lined Brexit that we ended up in, which no one would have voted for in 2016 if that's what they had been selling. The obvious answer is to join the Single Market Customs Union. That is the obvious answer, because that pretty much does solve this situation. But of course, they would then have to accept that we'll be rejoining the Single Market Customs Union. But then again, not only have we seen a softening of position towards the EU, with negotiations actually taking place between us and the EU on the Northern Ireland Protocol, but even that is sort of months away. And we have Tory members, Tory MPs, and big Tory donors saying, yeah, we should probably rejoin the Single Market Customs Union. So as always, like I say, we will keep track of what is going on in Northern Ireland, but I am not expecting, shall we say, any breakthroughs anytime soon. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all very soon.